Greetings to everyone. Greetings, greetings, greetings. Welcome. My name is Doria Larrier, and I am the host of the Doria Larrier Show. Welcome to everybody who is here. This is season 6, episode 4. Season 6, episode 4. I'm so excited to be with you this evening. We have a totally different show this evening. Let's just say the more the merrier, okay? The more the merrier. So this is the first time that I'm actually going to have some of the listeners of the show to participate. Prayerfully, they're going to participate in the conversation this evening. So you know how I always begin. Assalamu alaikum, hotep, buenas noches, bonsoir. What's good? I'm looking forward to engaging in a conversation with you, not only you, but there's some other you, and yous who will also be watching us this evening. So my guest today is a sister whose name is Christal Cherry, and she is the author of a book that is part of our the center of our discussion, and it's called Mac and Cheese. Being different is okay. And so let's just get Sister Christal to the stage or to the couch, because we're on the couch here, and then we will add other people as we can get them on in order to participate as well.
Hi, good evening.
I love it. I love it. I love it. I love it. So welcome everybody. Welcome. And now again, as you heard me say before, we have a slightly different attendance policy here. We have some other folks who are joining us. So as I always love to say, please, if you're going to be watching us, just type in the chat where you can do city and state if that's fine. If you want to be bold, you can say zip code, because I will always shout out Brooklyn because that's where I am, and New York is on the map today. New York is totally on the map. Next in 5. I'm not going to say the whole thing, but anyway, next in 5, we did it. So welcome, welcome, welcome. So I am going to add some of our other friends to the stage, but my friends who are in the background, this is what I want you to do. Since I know you can see me, I want you to type into the comment section, into the regular comment section, that you do want to join the stage. And once I see that, then I will allow you to come on the stage. And prayerfully, you're going to participate in the conversation. If you just want to watch from the green room, let's say, that's perfectly fine as well. So let's get into this. So Sister Christal, thank you so much for coming onto the show and sitting with me. And of course, thank you to your publisher, Marion, who we prayerfully will speak to in a little bit. Thanks for coming to have a seat on the digital couch. So let's hop into the backstory. You wrote a book called Mac and Cheese. Being different is okay. Give me the backstory about where that came from, and then we'll get into the topic for the evening.
Yeah, Darielle, thank you so much for having me. I'm excited to be here, particularly with this new format that we just created in the last 5 minutes. Like I said, I came with my own posse of supporters, and so welcome
I
everyone.
love
I'm so glad to be here. Yes, so my book, Mac and Cheese, Being Different is Okay, was published in 2021, right in the height of the George Floyd era, when all of the craziness was going on. There was a racial awakening in this country. People were DEI, people were talking about DEI left and right. As a consultant, I was being hired to come in and speak to nonprofits about racial equity. I was speaking to the CEOs, to boards, and I kept thinking about a story that happened to my little boy years before, when he was playing on the playground and he was snubbed by a group of white children. And he came running back to me crying, and was saying that that he couldn't play with them, that they didn't want to play with him. And so I just took that story and made it into a story that could be a positive message to talk to our children about the differences that we all felt and feel during this time. Because I know, as a consultant, speaking to adults about race was very, very difficult. Right? There was frustrating. There was tension. There was discomfort. And I just thought, what are our children thinking? They're watching the news. They're watching the video. A lot of our kids had seen the video of George Floyd being killed, and what were their parents saying to them about that? And so I thought the book was timely. I thought the topic was timely. I wanted my book series to be about real issues, so that parents can really have real everyday conversations with their kids.
Excellent, excellent, excellent. And so you're taking something that happened, that really, really happened to you, and you're using it as and I'm going to say this with all love, as the drop in the bucket that we need, right? We need as many people's stories to be those drops in the bucket so that we can fill that bucket. And so that no one gets to say, I don't have examples of um, a young person that doesn't feel included. I
Mm-hmm.
don't have, and there are a few books. There are more books now, of course, than there have been, and yours is part of now the pantheon. I think I like using that word, the pantheon on the library shelf of texts that we can pull from. And so the text again, is about your son and how he comes to you and shares what has happened to him and your response. And so tell us about a little bit about let's say that turning point, or yeah, that turning point where your child in that moment finds the moment of pivot, the moment of shift, the moment where things become better. Not that they're excellent
Yes.
and perfect, but things become
Yes.
better.
Yeah, so in the book, he befriends a little boy named Cheez, who he didn't know, quickly becomes his friend. And he shares with Cheez what's going on. And Cheez says to him, you don't have to change who you are to be accepted. Let's go back to the playground and invite all of the children to play with us. And so, I love this idea of going back because when I'm talking to my clients and my boards and my nonprofit leaders, about inclusion and equity, and a lot of them felt guilty. A lot of them felt like that they were being blamed for what happened to us in this country. And I said, we do need to go back. We need to go back and remember what happened. We're not going to deny it or decline it in any way. No one is pointing fingers. What we want is acknowledgement that some people in this country are treated better because of their skin color. And so we wanted acknowledgement, we wanted to claim it, we wanted to name it. And so in the book, he goes back to the playground and to invite the children who are there to play with him. And so that's essentially what I do when I work with my clients. Let's go back. And then let's go back and look at the folks who are in the room and invite them into the conversation, right? And invite those who might be feeling on the margins into the conversation so that they know that their voices matter. And so that's what happens in this book. The little boy takes Mac, my son, back to the playground, and they invite the children to play with him. And then there are a lot of vignettes in the book about all the children playing together of different hues. There's a child in a wheelchair. There are boys who are light, who are dark, who are Asian. And so I made it clear that when I said inclusion, I meant everybody. It wasn't even just a race thing. And that's why I wanted to have the little boy in the wheelchair, because often people who are challenged with physical abilities also are often left out on the margins. People who are LGBTQ are left out on the margins, right? And so I wanted to make sure that the message was not just about race. We're talking about any time that a child feels different for whatever reason, and they feel that they're not being included. I wanted this book to address that. So, yeah.
Excellent. Thank you so much. So it seems like the people who were joining our party in the beginning, it looks like they're gonna watch from the sideline, which is perfectly fine. But if you want to join the conversation, just send me a message on the YouTube side, and listen. I'll be happy to come on. So actually, I'm gonna sort of call one person out, not by name, but I think there was someone who had the letters LCSW, and I'm wondering if that person is in the the therapeutic space and wanted to speak from that perspective. But if not, that's okay. But again, like let me know if you want to join the conversation. So the time and the event, the unfortunate event of the murder of George Floyd sort of opens up another window for you and opens up a thinking like, hey, there needs to be additional words. There needs to be additional texts to be a part of the library of things that we can pull from its resources to heal into whole, to make us
Yes.
more whole.
Yes.
And so I'm going to ask a question from the educator's perspective, right? You're speaking from the parent's perspective. But of course, this literally is a parallel for you and how you also do your board work, right? With your clients, with the adults, with the big people, and which we're all just big children, right? Because, we all know that when one adult gets mad, just like on the playground, they take the ball and they're like, we're leaving. I'm out. I'm out of this
Exactly.
conversation, right? And it's all about Who is going to be the cheese for you? Who's going to help you bring the ball back to the court? Who's going to help you apologize if you need to apologize? Who's going to help you acknowledge that you snatched it from someone or you tried to trip someone and knock them down, like in the game the other day? No, we're going to leave that alone. So, right. So, how are we going to play nice in the sandbox, literally and figuratively?
Yes.
This is what we do on the digital couch. We make a lot of parallels. We make a lot of connections. So, a question I have is about the relationship between parent and school, or family and school, the family and school, the family, school, and community partnership. So, from the family perspective, you noticed that your son needed some help. Your son needed either words to use or gestures that are welcoming from other people. How does that, in hindsight, how does that help, or how can that awareness be transferred to the school or to the classroom? And let's say your son's teacher, if you could turn back the hands of time and say,
Hmm.
what kind of conversations could you have with your child's teacher to support you in that work? Because, if, of course, some people know, and if you don't know, I'm going to remind you, what families see at home, we see in the classroom.
Hmm.
What we see in the classroom, even though families may say they don't do that at home, there is going to be some parallel of behavior. It may not look exactly the same, but the theme is still there. Child doesn't get what they want at home. They bring it to the classroom. They turn that same attitudes, nose up, stomping the feet, what have you, or blurting things out at school, vice
Yeah.
versa. So, what could you say now in hindsight to your child's teacher or to the school that you noticed something at home? What kind of help or support or resources or insight could you get from school?
Yeah, no, I think the first thing that, I would say to parents, or I'm sorry, to teachers or counselors, is if a child comes to you um, with a complaint or a situation, the first thing I would say is to listen, right? And to believe that child, and to believe that his experience that he's sharing with you really happened. We know that children will make up stories, particularly when they're small. But if a child comes to you and says, Bobby was mean to me and he knocked me down, I'm hoping that the teacher will at least listen and believe that the child is telling the truth, and then do a little investigation to make sure. But I think a lot of times children may not even know, they don't even have the words to express. Because my child certainly didn't have the words to understand, in that particular situation, that he was the only Black child on that playground, and that perhaps the reason he was snubbed was because he was different. He just knew that they didn't want him in the group with them, and he felt hurt. And that was the point, that we often don't realize that our behavior, sometimes we don't even have intentions of hurting people, but we're complicit, right? And so, believe that when I tell you that I feel excluded, or I feel like you didn't hear me, or that you hurt me, I want you to listen to me and believe that what I'm sharing with you is true, and at least do the investigation and the research, right? And then if it is true, then name it and claim it, right? And now we can now talk about the issue and try to resolve it. But I think to poo-poo on it, or to tell the child, she didn't mean it, she didn't really mean it, or he didn't really say that, to not acknowledge what the child said is true. What happened is true, I think, is a mistake. So listen to your children, and then go back to the child who the complaint is being made about, and let's talk about what actually happened. Because sometimes children don't even realize why they're doing what they're doing, right? Like you said, they're emulating what they see at home, and they go to the school, they do the same thing. So what I wanted to share was that children, as well as adults, feel hurt when they're excluded, when they don't feel like they belong. And it may be for various reasons, but I know from my day-to-day work that grown-ups, a full-grown man will say, there are times when I don't feel like I belong in a conversation. I feel like an outsider. I feel like my thoughts don't matter. And so if he's thinking that, then a little kid thinks that as well. So I say take heed to when a child comes to you, do the research, let's talk about it, and let's figure out a way to resolve the situation.
Excellent. And so I have one more. I have a little pin to put into what you just shared. Now, for those of you who know, I'm an educator as well. And so I witness, and I say witness, these interactions on a regular basis. And there's one thing that in the listening, I am the person now, and I have to say now because I was the person to say, oh, he or she didn't mean it, not taking the moment to at least acknowledge that the child, let's say the child who has been hurt or harmed, only knows, and I can say this now, that their body was touched in a way that was uncomfortable. And that could mean someone was nudged and they fell, or they were bumped, or they tripped, and I'm using the word correctly. They tripped over someone. Whether they were tripped is perspective. And so now I take the position of, if I did see it and I see that, let's say in the situation, the tripping occurred because, let's say, I'll say Diane and Penny. I'll say those two names. So Penny falls. Penny has run by Diane. Penny thinks that Diane tripped her. Penny doesn't realize that it was actually that Diane was turned in a way that when Penny ran by, she tripped over the other child's leg. She didn't intend to do that. So I do the best that I can to become literally like the investigative reporter. And I say, hey, let's dial it back. Let's rewind this tape. Let me tell you what I saw. And sometimes the child, let's say, who is accused of doing the tripping, they don't even know what was going on because they're running in the other direction or they're not watching. So the child that gets hurt thinks, oh, of course it was and I use the word intentional. And of course we teach at home that it was done on purpose. And so when I try to walk it back, now I can say, I'm still going to acknowledge that a child was hurt in the process, but I also need to let that child know, here's the situation that actually was occurring. You kind of got mixed up in it. Now, of course, if there's a situation where there was intent to harm, then yes, we're going to still acknowledge, and then we're going to get to the bottom of that. Why is it that that occurred? So, and I needed just to make that clear because, or that differentiation clear, because and I'm speaking now as a teacher, from a parent's perspective, when they hear these children don't want to play with my child, and the parent hears the child and the child says they don't want to play with me, it very well could be that it's the difference. And the difference is that it could be a race issue. It could very well be. It's also my responsibility to say, let's see, could there be something else that occurred? I have to do that. I have to do that. I have to do that now.
Right.
And so, which is why I said, what are the conversations that you, let's say at that time, had with the school, or
so you went out for
okay, that we can have.
Yeah.
So especially who I know is watching, I love to hear it or bring it into the flow, into this conversation. So I really just wanted to like engage a little bit more about that. How, and again, in my mind, this book Mac and Cheez is definitely a parallel for life. It's a parallel for the work world. How make space? I think that's the best phrase that we're using these days. How do we make space for the acknowledgement, the walking through what are the possible other reasons? Like how, like as adults, like how do we make space for that? Because again, I think the book is a parallel for life. Those type of conversations.
Right. So you went out on part of your question, so I'm not sure I totally understand. I heard you say make space, but I think I missed the first part, so I apologize.
what I was saying is space for what. There we go. Sorry. How do we make space for the types of, um, let's say, getting to the bottom of a situation before we jump to the conclusion that they be one reason why that situation occurred?
How do we make space before we jump to conclusions that what? L'Oreal, are you there?
I'm going to type it in the chat.
Okay, okay.
Yes.
Yeah, I think we have our connection is kind of weird. I think we're going in and out, both of us. Yeah.
Ooh.
How do we make space for deeper conversations? Well, one of the things I do in the book is I at the back of each of my books there is a question and answer section to allow parents and teachers to sit down with their children and ask some of these questions, which will prompt some ideas and some conversations that they may not have had before. And so we make space for deeper conversations by allowing people to talk, by asking questions, by allowing them, giving them an opportunity to share their feelings and to dig a little deeper about some of these ideas. And so that's why I did that in the book. And it allows our parents and our teachers, and I've had a couple of parents say to me, "Oh my God, I'm so glad you added those questions because I wasn't sure how to broach this topic with my kid." And those questions made talking about this a lot easier. And so and one of the things that I really did in the book, which I did that on purpose, even though it's clear that the children in the book who snubbed Mac were white children, I never say anything about race in the book. I never make it overtly clear that it's about race because, again, when I say difference, I want to make sure that whether it's a child who is obese or a child who is from a Muslim faith, or whether it's a child who is extremely tall, anybody who is different than what would be considered the norm, which is there is no norm, but any child that would make that stands out in the crowd. Who would be considered different. And so that's why I wanted to leave that open so that anybody who feels like they're different in any way, whether everyone has brown eyes and you have blue eyes, I don't really care. Different is different, but it's okay regardless. So, yeah.
Okay, folks. So, any questions from our viewers? I think we can do a little wrap up, and we definitely want to hear what the next texts are going to be. What are the next titles going to be since you started off strong text? What are some other things that you're going to talk about in your future books?
Yeah, so my next book after Mac and Cheese Being Different is Okay, I wrote a second book in 2024 called Mac and Cheese I Love Being Adopted because my son Mac is adopted. And I know for children who are adopted, all of them go through stages of grief. Even if they've never known their biological parents, there's still a sense of rejection, there's still a sense of loss. And even when they're small, they may not be able to articulate it accurately, but you can see it in behaviors. And as they get older, their questions become more mature and sophisticated. And so I wanted to have a little tale to address children who might be feeling different in that way because they are adopted. My son has said to me on multiple occasions, Why did I have to be adopted? Why do I have to be different than the other kids in my classroom, right? And so I think that's a question that comes up for a lot of children who are adopted. And so again, I addressed another real life issue that can be difficult for children, and are ways for parents and teachers to talk to them about those issues. And that's the intent of this series, is to really traverse through real life issues that we know that children are facing, and giving parents some tips and some ways for them to help their children navigate those difficult times. And so I think my third book, even though I've not written it yet, I have some ideas. It's going to be about children who are diagnosed with ADHD, and the whole life that goes on after that, the journey that happens for children who then get an IEP, and often are put on medication and having to be separated out into smaller classrooms and taking more time for tests and all the things that make children feel a little different and embarrassed even, that they have to go through these things. And so I think my next book is going to be on children who are diagnosed with ADHD and what that journey looks like for them. And so again, my focus is on real life issues that our children are going through, and how we as the adults in their lives can help them get through those issues.
Those topics are extremely important, extremely important. And again, we need more books, more titles on the real issues that children go through and that families go through, so that teachers can support, teachers can be a bridge, parents can be a bridge, so the conversation can be similar, that we're coming from the same vantage points of support, of helping, of keeping children as even tempered, if you will, no matter what
Yes.
the situation brings to their doorstep or to their desk,
Hmm.
and being using the same, again, the same warm language, the same giving and comforting and supporting language, so that they can do their work well. We're trying to
Yes.
make sure that children do well. That's the point. And so with Mac and Cheese being different is okay. And then the book on the adoption process and the adoption angle, a level of life. And then also with children who may have a diagnosis, no matter what the diagnosis is, how can parents and teachers and community have a conversation? What are the terms that are good and best and supportive and welcoming? I think those are extremely, extremely great texts. I do pray
Thank
that
you.
when you write these additional texts, please come on back to the digital. We'll have the whole crew, you know, sitting in the background waiting. Um, and I do hope that when we finish the live, the people who are in the background, y'all will stay around and we'll have a little after party. Okay, we have a little after party. Only those people who get the link can get to the after party. The other
Well,
people aren't
Doria,
gonna
I just want
get
to
to the after
take
party. We'll just start having after parties. So
Doria, I want to take a
I'm
moment
going
to
to make
thank
myself quiet. You give your last statements.
yes.
Please remember everyone.
Yes,
Yes,
I want to take a moment to thank
go ahead.
Marion Brooks, who is the my new publisher, of his company is called Little Buttons, and I'm so excited to join his team and to have him publish my books. And so I'm looking forward to working with Marion and his team as we continue through this Mac and Cheese series and figure out ways that we can reach children in ways that maybe they had not been reached before. And so I thank him for trusting me and really showing interest in my work. And I also thank you for having me on as a guest to talk about the importance of inclusion and belonging in our families and in the schools. So thank you.
I appreciate it. I appreciate it greatly. So, if you do not know who Marion is, Marion, if you look through my series of, it's probably a new classes in session. If you type in a new classes in session and then Marion Brooks, you will see. I think Marion, I think we did about 2 interviews in the past. He's a part of my digital library of conversations. And so please go look for our conversations about his books. And I'm really glad that we're adding more to the series. about conversations about children and about real life things that happen to people, because that is the only way that we're going to grow. So thank you for joining us on A New Class is in Session, part of the Doria Larrier Show. I really appreciate you. Stay right where you are. Do not leave, because we're getting ready for the after party. Anybody else is willing to join? If you have that link, you can join us for the after party. If not, we're going to say goodnight for now. Please join us next week, where we'll also have another book talk with another author. All right. So everyone stay tuned.